and thanks everyone for coming. Now we're approaching sort of 2/3 of the season done, a third left. We have All-Star next week and Leagues Cup starting, so just felt like it was a natural time to kind of take obviously take stock of the season and our progression and how we're evolving as a team and on the roster. And let me just start off by saying that we can really feel the excitement around this team. There's certainly a buzz in the city. I've lived here a long time, on and off, and there's certain years that sort of stand out, and clearly back in '96 or '99 when we opened the stadium. But right now, what's happening down at Lower.com Field is really neat to see, and just to be a part of it. I feel very grateful to be a part of this club and to be in the stadium, in the venue when our fans are vocal and are passionate and are part of the action and are participating, and you can really see how the team is feeding off their energy. And so really want to thank our supporters, their passion. It's getting really loud in there. And I think some fans may be too loud, so we got to figure that out. But excited about what's happening. We're not all the way there by any stretch of the imagination. We got 12 games remaining, and there's a summer window that's still open, but we feel like we're in the mix. Right? So we're trying to be a team that's consistently top four, and right now, obviously, we're in fifth, but we're within 3 points of third, and so we feel like we're in the hunt. So excited about the season so far. Still a third to play.
Great. Well, those questions.
Can you take us through the last few days in terms of conversations with the league on Saturday night and the officiating and the suspension? Just kind of what are those conversations, if any, like? How does that process work? Just these last couple of days, what's that been like in terms of communication?
Mm-hmm. In some ways, it's similar to many weeks because there's consistent dialogue with the league. They do a good job of communicating with the clubs and being open to speak about officiating because they're dedicated to improving. I mean, Pro is an initiative that was launched by the league, 5-10 years ago, to improve officiating, and it really has. I mean, I think if you go back 10 years, it's come a long way. So with Mark Geiger in charge this year, Howard Webb last year, we've created a relationship with the people in charge of Pro, and they engage with us to discuss calls and the way a match is officiated. So what happens is on Sunday, there's typically a quiet period where you're not supposed to reach out to the league or Pro, and so we scheduled a call, and you have a call with Mark and with Pro, and you walk through the game and you talk about different calls and the way it was managed. And I think that's a healthy discussion, and it's one that's open and transparent, and what's great is they're honest, right? So I don't want to speak for them at all, but we obviously were upset with the way the game went, and it was not what we call a key match incident where there's a red card or a penalty kick. That's typically what officiating we're talking about, is something that shifts the game. This is a build-up. This was the way the entire game happened, and the frustrations and the temperature of the whole stadium. You could feel that it kind of reached a boiling point. And there are times, obviously, that, or maybe not obviously, but there are times in the match where we feel like maybe the temperature could have been cooled, or calls could have gone our way. Simply more simple calls that could have kind of allowed the players to understand that it's everything's fair, and we're trying to play the game of soccer and not let the officiating be the center of attention. So you've calls to the league office, and then there's the disciplinary committee, which is a separate body and separate members that work through the result of infractions like red cards and yellow cards. So you're engaging with the league office liaison to work through the disciplinary committee decisions. And then obviously I'm speaking internally to our staff about how we can improve and how we show up for a match and how we represent the club, and certainly we want to be emotional and when it's necessary to express ourselves, let's do so, but let's also do it in a way that's responsible and and represents the values of the club.
What did you think of the way Wilfried handled that part of it, given that this is the first time that the situation has come up with it?
I think, I'll let Coach Nancy can sort of speak for himself. I think he said it well this week already, that we know he's typically a calm person on the sideline, but he is an emotional person, and we want to play with passion, and a lot of the times the players feed off of the coach. We all know that. We see that in soccer, we see that across all sports. And so there's times where, if it's an emotional game where you're going to express that. And I want that. And I think our club wants that, and our fans want that. And so the question is just to what degree and what line do you hold it at? And so, given the match and the way that things went, I understand why it got to that point. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we, again, behave in a responsible way and represent the crest well. So, but by and large, Wilfried is an elegant, intelligent, very composed but passionate person. And so, when you're asked to go out there in front of 20,000 plus people, and the stadium's going, and the players are expressing themselves, sometimes your emotions can get the best of you.
Did you guys anticipate the supplemental discipline coming, or were you surprised by it?
Wasn't surprised that there was supplemental discipline. For me, I thought one additional game was a little harsh, given Wilfried's just outstanding character, his past behavior. He's been in the league a number of years, and I think it's not something that's a consistent behavior issue with him or our staff. So I was a little bit surprised by the additional game. Yeah.
You guys are going to be, you're going into this next game with an 8-game unbeaten streak.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you at with, kind of heading towards the All-Star break, just the state of the team? And
Mm-hmm.
I know there's the window so open still, that kind of thing. I mean, just kind of what's your take on your team right now heading forward?
Yeah, we feel good about where we are, but I can go over a few things that we want to improve or try to improve. Certainly, we're evolving under a new coach, and it takes some time for players to adapt. But certainly in the offensive part of the field and in the attacking third, we're making progress. We're first in the league in goals scored with 43, goal differential. We're I think third. So we're in a good place from production, right? How are we advancing the ball up the field, getting into the penalty area, getting into half spaces, and creating goal-scoring opportunities? It's the hardest thing to do in the game, and we're doing it well. And credit to our coaching staff and the players for embracing the principles of play. In terms of improvement, we risk going forward. We try to get numbers forward, and sometimes that leaves you open in the back, but really proud of our group along the back line who have handled the pressure, who can defend, as coach will say, 1v1. And certainly some players that are, center back is not their natural position. But now with players getting healthy, we have Gus, Josh, and Milos all back and healthy. We are in a position where we have flexibility. So if we need the traditional sort of natural center back to hold things down, we have that. If we want a player, that can, midfield converted to center back, and which allows us to move the ball up the field in a different way, we have that. So feel like we're in a very good position. Like I said, we're in the mix. The window is open. We're always looking to improve, but the best position is you don't need to. And we're very comfortable with this roster. It's a nice blend of veterans who've been in this position before, who have won championships, people who know Columbus, and then also some young players that have come in and stepped in, done very well, right? So you have Pat Schulte, who had probably one of his best games of the year last match. Sean Zawatsky has really come on. We've all really been excited about Sean taking the next step. I don't think at the beginning of the year we'd have thought it would be a right center back, but we know he's that type of character who, and he is a quality player who can play in all positions. And at this point, he is a converted. That's one position now that's in his sort of locker that he can play. And so, at this point, I don't think it's fair to say that we're playing with no center backs. Both Malty and Sean are now center backs and or can play center back, including Steven Moreira.
Yeah. Along those lines, during this unbeaten streak, you had two guys go off and play for national teams. I know they're coming back, but to be able to kind of absorb that loss to the starting lineup or to the lineup, and then just be able to keep rolling. I mean, how much did you guys grow?
Yeah. Yeah, the season's long in MLS, and it's we play through international breaks. Unlike a lot of leagues, we have multiple players that are called up into their national team, so it's very challenging. And I kudos to the coaching staff for managing through it. We knew when you build your roster, you know that you have the Gold Cup. So it is something we knew that Aiden could be in the mix to be called up. Jason Russell-Rowe with Canada, Mo Farsi. I mean, you have Kevin Molina with Trinidad, Eloy with Curacao. I mean, there's a number of players. Cucho with Colombia, Armenia. That's on the list. That is on the board, and we're always evaluating the numbers that could be gone. But I think with the depth of this roster and the youth that has stepped in, we're able to sort of flex that muscle and maintain a consistent standard. And I think that's, again, credit to the coaches and the preparation, the performance staff, who from preseason have rotated the roster even during training, so that everyone has a chance to play with the first team. That players are remaining, at a high level of fitness by playing games with Crew 2, by getting them minutes, even some sporadically throughout the year. So I think that's a sign of how this roster has evolved. But it is no doubt a challenge when you're in MLS. The way our footprint works, it's just it's brutal at times. I mean, the May-June period was the most congested I have ever seen it in my time in this league. So obviously we had a few injuries, getting healthy now, and then really excited. Obviously Portland on Saturday, great atmosphere in that stadium. Hoping to get our third away win, pick up some points, and then we have this All-Star break and Leagues Cup. I'm really excited about what Leagues Cup is and what it can be in the future, and so we can talk about that. But it's been a challenge, but I feel like we weathered it well.
You mentioned some of the signings you guys have, in specifically Malte, but also Christian. I think those are both guys that maybe you guys view differently than kind of the national narrative when you were signed, and obviously they both made a pretty big impact. When you're able to do that, kind of those under the radar signings that maybe you don't view that way, but then come in and make it the impact they have, how much pride do you take in just organizationally that you find guys that can come in and play maybe a bigger role than projected?
Look, there's a whole team of people who are watching games, every game in our league, games around the world, and we have a process that we go through with scouting led by Neil McGuinness and Issa Tall, and when you bring a player in, there's certain expectations. You expect them to perform and play. So I would say we're surprised by their performance, but what you don't know is how they're going to fit with other players, and so some of that comes down to the character of the player. And in soccer, you don't get as many chances to speak to those players. Sometimes when you trade a player, you might not get to speak to them at all. You're not allowed to. When you're acquiring a player overseas, it's might be a little bit easier. So there's always a chance that they won't assimilate to the team. And I think that, again, is a credit to the culture created by the coach and the players to embrace new players, to make them feel welcome. And I think you see a very good comfort level from Christian coming into preseason, Malte through a trade with New York City, but they're just good. They're good guys. You talk to Chris and you talk to Malte, and they're just good guys you like to have around this club, and I think that helps. So Chris becomes sort of a glue because of his background, his ability to speak English and Spanish, and then Malte with some of the European players, and he already knows the league, has won a championship with New York City FC. So there's these other intangibles that's what sort of we feel like can make the difference of whether or not they're going to have an immediate impact when you acquire them.
You also talked about like Sean, Aiden going to national team, just the youth that has come through, and I know some of those guys go back a little bit further, but you talked at the beginning of the year about wanting to continue to build through that pathway, and now seeing even more guys kind of take on bigger roles with this club. Is that the vision that you guys have, especially with Wilfried, who obviously is willing to give those guys opportunities?
Yeah, absolutely. The vision of the club is to take advantage of local young talent and increase access to the game, and then develop players that know the values of our city and in the Midwest. And we feel like it's much better. The area and the region is much better than a lot of us had anticipated. Frankly, obviously, I grew up here, but things have changed in the last 30 years. And this club, frankly, has never been known for being a leader in player development. It's punched above its weight. Certainly, Will Trapp and a number of other players, but over the last few years, we really invested in this space, and credit to Mark Nichols, Kelvin Jones, and our whole and Crew 2, the pathway, because now all of a sudden you've seen these players push through and show that they're capable of playing at the highest level, and you don't necessarily have to acquire all your talent overseas. And that's what we believe is sustainable, is the ability to move players along in an efficient way, in an economic way, and they reflect the values of the club. So yes, Aiden is a great example. Sean, another fantastic example. And then there's also players that other teams are developing. I think Jason Russell Rowe is an example where, we knew him from our time in Toronto, and for whatever reason, it doesn't fit with what they're trying to do, and that's okay. And it's an opportunity for us, and I think that's another step this league is taking. We're at this stage where the top clubs around the world are watching our games every single week, and they know that we have a hotbed of talent in the United States and Canada, and so we're seeing them watch us. At the same time, other teams we're watching each other, and there's a market for talent that we want to encourage. Not only through trading, but trading in the season, but trading for homegrown player rights. We're at this this tipping point where that's really exciting if you're a soccer fan in the United States, and it bodes well for the national teams of U.S. and Canada.
You did mention the transfer window. Wilfried talked the other day about that the summer isn't always the best time to bring guys in because he likes to establish that culture in preseason. But there is an opportunity, like you said, to improve. So how do you balance those two things where, okay, maybe there's a guy to improve, but we also want to make sure we don't disrupt what's going well in the locker room? I imagine that's something in your mind that most people don't think about when they talk about transfers.
Yeah. I hope that most teams are looking at
outside
that.
the team.
I mean, it depends where your club's at, right? If you're at the bottom of the table and you need to change your culture, well, then maybe you want some shocks. But like I said, we feel very good about this group and the culture that has been created in the locker room and with the coaches and our staff. And so we don't feel like we have to do anything. That said, we're always looking to improve. We like to be a transfer window ahead, maybe even two. So some moves that we would maybe do in the summer would be something that would help us now, but maybe it's more forward looking. And I think that's important in the salary cap world where, our off season is short. And so you maybe can't make all the moves that you want in that period. And so maybe you would make one in the summer, but we're looking at options in multiple positions. We need to keep this roster competitive. Watching training out there, it's extremely competitive. You can't pick out, frankly, who will be the starting 11 when you look out on the field right now, and that's exciting. That's exciting.
And obviously, Aloy is a topic of conversation among the fan base, just given he came in as the number one. Was injured and whatnot. There's obviously been reports out there. Just what can you say about conversations with him and kind of where he stands with the club right now?
Can't say much, just because we're in conversations, obviously, with Aloy and his representative, and first and foremost, Aloy has been fantastic for this club. Great person, great leader. Won a championship here. Always welcomes people around to engage in this club. So that said, a player of his caliber probably isn't happy that they're not starting. But frankly, that's similar to a lot of players on our roster. So I'll kind of leave it at that. We're obviously in conversations. This is this is the time when we are looking at other players and then other teams are looking at our players. So, we'll see where that lands us at the end of the window.
I may have missed him yesterday when we were looking. Is he training with the team right
He,
now? or-
yeah, he wasn't feeling well yesterday. So,
I guess just Leagues Cup was probably the only
Mhm.
other. What first year of this thing? Very new to everybody. What do you kind of expect from this? What do you hope to get out of it? It's not the Open Cup. Fans are familiar with that and kind of the run you can make in there. So what does this do for you guys kind of outside of the MLS window here as we approach that?
Mhm. Yeah, it's the first year of this competition, and sort of taking my club hat off for a second, I think it's a really incredible opportunity for the league and our fans to experience global competition. We're always trying to measure ourselves globally, right? That's what the fans love doing. We can't go over and play English Premier League teams to see where we stack up, but frankly, I think we stack up a lot better than most people would probably think. But we can with Mexico, and their top Liga MX is a top league, fantastic players. We've created a nice relationship with them, and this rivalry that started with the national team. Frankly, it started in the stadium behind me with the Dos Acero in a lot of ways, and now it can spill over into the club realm, not just in what was formerly CONCACAF Champions League and CCC now. But now we get to see it in a league format with Leagues Cup, and I think that's really exciting. We don't know what it will be, but what we do know is teams are going to go and compete, and there's a lot on the line. There's CCC spots available, which every team, that's a goal for most all ambitious teams to be in Champions League. And so that's what's on the line. And so as a league, we will be able to measure ourselves against all the teams in Mexico personally, and then as on behalf of the club, we get to play against Club America, and St. Louis, and so just in the group play. So what it means for us as a club is the opportunity to play one of the best clubs in the world over the last 50 plus years. They have fantastic players in their team. A U.S. international, Alex Andejas, is one of their strikers, U.S. men's national team player. We have Jonathan Rodriguez, who's always a league leader in goals for their team. You have Henry Martin, who's their who's a Mexican national team player. I mean, their team is littered with stars and national team players, global stars. So really excited about the opportunity. And then we have St. Louis, which is we don't play them in league MLS regular season play. Now we get an opportunity to see them, and what they've done this season has just been incredible. Obviously first in the West, I think we're 38, we're 2 points behind them in the overall table, and so that'll be fun for our fans. So really excited about it, hoping our fans, and I know they will show up, but it's going to be a little bit different feeling, because it's going to be a little bit more global, more international. If you remember the Campeones Cup against Cruz Azul, that was one of my favorite experiences at Lower.com field, because of the flavor and the international and diversity in the stadium, welcoming all cultures, and that's what this game's about.
Club America travel well.
Do they? Well, they're going to need to. Yes, because they it's Club America. Their crest is the entire Western Hemisphere, and so I think that they think that they probably represent the entire Western Hemisphere. They obviously play in the famed Azteca Stadium, which has been around since the World Cups, in the 70s, and so I think they travel well. Now they'll be living here for a few days, so we'll have to share some spaces, and the way that it's set up, all the matches are in MLS stadiums, and so that's just the way that the competition structure has been set up. So we'll have to make sure we're somewhat hospitable to our neighbors to the south.
How cool is that, though? Lower.com is so new still. It's obviously a fantastic facility. To be able to kind of showcase that facility on that sort of stage.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and frankly, it's why ownership invested at the level that they did. The city, the county, the state came in to save this team, because soccer is just on this steep trajectory. You can feel it. And then whether or not that's where the national team here, or when we make runs, and we play on Saturdays, but when the people step into that stadium, you know, you see their eyes light up. I mean, it's become a regular occurrence when someone grabs them by the shoulder and they're like, wow, this is what's going on here, and this is just better in person than even, you know, it shows up well on TV, but it's even better in person. And I think that was the vision that we had when we built it. It feels different. It's a sign of where this league's going, but certainly where this club in the city is headed. So, you know, it's you know, it's privileged to play down at lower.com, you know, every week.
How much of an advantage does that give the team having that kind of atmosphere, especially going into Leagues Cup,
Mhm.
the second half of this MLS season?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, lower.com field is our 12th man. I mean, it really is, and it's not just the Nordeca. You know, that's with the terraces, it's the largest supporters section in the league, and I think that's you can feel it each week, and so the players feed off of it, like I said, and it gives us an advantage that few other teams have. And what they do, especially the Nordeca, is they bring in everyone else around into the traditions that are happening, you know, whether or not that's the Wise Men song that's sung before the match, or the, you know, when we score a goal, the jackhammer and holding up the brick that represents, you know, all the hard work of the players, and it's sort of shared with the fans, and then it's posted on the wall in the tunnel. I mean, there's these traditions that really create a culture of success and excellence, and it starts with the fans, and, you know, excited about what they do every week, and love their tifos and their passion.
All good? All right, thank you.